Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Coffee Break. My name is Steve Barrett. I'm the editorial director of PR Week, and I'm going to be chatting this week to Travis Parman, who is the VP of Corporate Communications at Nissan. I had to look down there, Travis, because you've got a complicated job title, and you're also in charge of global engagement for Nissan as well. And you've spent time in your 8 years both in France at the company's operations there, and also in Tokyo. And now you're back in Nashville, and we can see the French influence in your backdrop there. But welcome to Coffee Break.
Yes, I am a little bit of a collector, so I've picked up a few things from the travels around the world. So yes.
Good stuff. Well, tell us a bit about how lockdown's been. Obviously, a lot of people have been working from home. We're very lucky that we can work from home. Tell us how that's been for you personally, and also how it's been for the team, and how you've made it work in these sort of challenging times.
Yeah, that is the word for it, challenge. We have significant U.S. operations, and so especially with manufacturing, it was quite a challenge. We were one of the first automotive manufacturers to go down because of COVID, and one of the last to come up, so that we could be very thoughtful about and vigilant about protecting employees and doing it in the right way. From a communications perspective, we've really increased our level of communications, especially on the employee communication side. And I would say that we are closer now than we've ever been. To make sure that we didn't drop any balls, we started with our communications team and all communicators meeting every single day. So we start the morning out touching base, making sure that everyone is up to speed with what our priorities are. And then we end every day with a direct reports meeting. So it's actually fostered a lot more connection, especially across all of North America, including Mexico and Canada too.
Yeah, and you've been doing some interesting stuff on the internal front. There's a hashtag draw, and some other initiatives. Tell us a bit about that, and how you put them in place, and what the reaction was.
Yeah, what we found was that in the beginning, media only wanted to cover COVID topics. So that's what we served them up. So we worked in conjunction with Global and our global design organization, because we're big supporters of STEAM education. So for the arts part of STEAM, we worked with our designers who have been doing sketch tutorials to inspire young folks, especially to take some of this time that they have to focus on creative outlets. And so we started a draw campaign. And it also gave parents who are teaching from home a little bit of content to keep their kids creative and inspired and busy as well. Some of the other things that we tried to get creative about was, as an auto manufacturer, what can we do? What can we say in this era to help folks out? So people need a little bit of a cocoon working from home sometimes, because you've got dogs running around, you've got kids running around in the background. So we said, and we've got a lot of road warriors, who call on dealers who are experts at working from their car. So we said, how do you turn your car into a virtual office space to take Zoom calls from, to throw out a laptop and get some real work done? So we put out some stories along those lines. So again, if media want COVID stories, let's give them constructive COVID stories. On the topic of some of those folks popping up in the background of Zoom calls, like the kids, we turned them into experts for us on the product. So we had them doing walk-arounds in their driveways with their family car to demonstrate their vehicles. And so that went over really well.
Good stuff. And what about the external market? Obviously, the International Auto Show was set to take place in the summer in Detroit for the first time. That couldn't go ahead. How did you change up your plans to still do your reveals and make some impact without the auto show to do that?
Yes, auto shows are a significant component of our arsenal for communications in automotive, and that several of them have been canceled altogether or postponed, including the New York show. So we've had two major reveals that we've done during this COVID era. The first one was Rogue, and Rogue is critically important to us. It is our top-selling nameplate in the US, and it would have been at the New York show. So our teams planned all that remotely. What we found was that absent an auto show, it actually gave us an opportunity to approach it in a very different way. We did virtual backgrounders with all of our top media. So it put us in a much more high touch environment than normal. So message penetration has actually been better than ever. We are competing with maybe 2 or 3 other vehicles that are being revealed in a similar time frame versus 20 or 30 at an auto show. And we've been able to leverage that to our advantage. There's nothing that really replaces being able to see, touch, take your own photos of the vehicle and really experience it in person. But with assets and giving extended embargoes so that people have more of an opportunity to really digest the material and understand it, we have found that to be really effective as well. We still, in a socially distant, safe way, are getting the vehicles into the regions, and then our regional representatives are doing those in-person, socially distant walkarounds of the vehicle when possible.
Okay, that's interesting. And have you sped up any innovation? Often we see that at times like this, people really get creative. Have you used any particular social channels in a different way? What else have you done to make the launches pop?
Yes, so we've actually really worked with our internal audiences too, to create an army of ambassadors around the product and the product reveals. So we've been much more inclusive of our internal audiences so that they completely understand the milestones that we have for launch, so that they can take the material that we put out to promote the vehicle and extend it through all of their social media networks. One of the areas that we have focused on recently is better engagement of our executives on LinkedIn. And we have seen LinkedIn referrals back to our media site increase 800% as a result of some of those efforts of trying to promote through our employee ambassador channels.
That's it. That's very interesting. And LinkedIn is a really compelling channel. I mean, that's a PR week as well. Tell us a bit about how the more corporate side of the job has changed in terms of results, financial releases, and that part of the role.
So we have been doing many more. We just completed a town hall with all of North America with engagement from our Japan folks just last week. So because we were already in the middle of communicating a transformation plan before this, with each of these launches, it's really important that we explain the business context of those as to how they play into the transformation plan. So we've really been integrating our Phoenix Rising business story with our launch cadence. And so we've been taking that approach so that we make sure that we're addressing not just the product publicity side, but where it falls in the context of really revamping the business.
Now, clearly, it's been an interesting, shall we say, couple of years in terms of leadership at Nissan, and with the former CEO Carlos Ghosn having well-documented issues, and he was making some comments this weekend as well. How have you transitioned through that new leadership phase, and how do you deal with things like him making comments about the company, not necessarily particularly positive comments, when results come out?
In the very beginning, I think there was a lot of reluctance across our regions to speak during the scandal that we had. What we actually found through our metrics was there was only an overlap of about 10% of some of the negative comments that were coming through when we were much more directed, when we were much more focused and talking about the business, talking about the specific products. So it's been sticking to our corporate narrative and the story of what we're focused on now and what our priorities are. And here in North America, that's been, we're working to change the business, change the product, and change the culture. And then we can cite specific examples of what we're working toward that. And that's helped us keeping that discipline of sticking to the corporate narrative has really helped us work through that.
Now, he did make a comment about the sort of Renault, Nissan, Mitsubishi alliance. How does that play into your world? It sounds like you concentrate mainly on the Nissan part of it, but what's the current state of the alliance and how does that play into your day-to-day?
So we continue to stay in touch and to work collaboratively together. So my assignment in France was with Renault. So I know the Renault communications team quite well, went immediately from there to Tokyo to work with our corporate headquarters communications team before coming back to North America. So there are still lots of opportunities for us to collaborate together, and the cadence of messaging, we stay in lockstep so that we are aware of what one another is doing and collaborate together where we can.
So let's talk about COVID again. For a while, I guess people weren't commuting, they weren't maybe using their cars as much. And then as lockdown went on, I guess car is a bit of a safe space, isn't it? And you might find yourself just going out for a drive to get away from being locked down at home. What have you seen in terms of the habits, driving habits and social habits around automobiles over the last 4 months?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. For a long time, people were not getting out whatsoever. And then they did start to get bored. They decided that they could do something that was socially distanced and comfortable and getting a change of scenery by going out for a drive. What we actually found in a lot of cases was you'd be surprised how quickly your driving skills deteriorate when you're not in a daily habit of doing it. So that was another COVID story that we served up for media that got quite a bit of attention. Was be careful when you go back out. You don't realize it, but you've forgotten how to drive. Here are some of the technologies that our Nissan vehicles have that will help guard you in some of these situations. But here are some of the most common driving mistakes, if you're a little bit on the rusty side, that you need to be aware of. So we've seen that. The other issue, we put something out that was pretty popular, is how to properly sanitize your vehicle when you go out, when you come back. And that there are lots of things that, especially with today's touch screens, there are lots of cleaning chemicals that should not be on there that most people do not know about. So we offered some tips along those lines for how to handle that situation.
That's so true about the driving thing, because me and my wife live in Brooklyn. We don't own a car. It's probably more expensive to have a parking space here than it is to have an apartment. So we did head out upstate for a week, got a hire car, and I got in the car and I realized I hadn't driven for 18 months. And I was and I have the old English thing to play into that as well. So I had to make sure I was looking the right way and not getting smashed up immediately. So that is so true. That's a good point. Talk about, obviously it's been an amazing time, just with things piling on seemingly. A few quick fire questions. Issues around racial injustice that have affected the whole of the States. How did Nissan react as a corporation, and how was your messaging around all those unfortunate incidents?
Yeah, absolutely. Nissan took a stand quickly on the racial injustice issues. I also serve as president of the Nissan Foundation. The Nissan Foundation was established almost 30 years ago as a direct and compassionate response to the Rodney King trial verdicts in Los Angeles that created a significant amount of civil unrest for weeks on end. Our headquarters was in Los Angeles at the time, and our employees said, we really need a tool that we can leverage to promote cultural diversity, cultural education, and sensitivity. And so for nearly 30 years now, that's what the Nissan Foundation has focused on, are opportunities that promote cultural education and understanding.
Yeah, a couple of quick fire questions to finish. Facebook, the ad boycott is another big story in the world of marketing. Has Nissan made a statement about that in terms of what it's doing with Facebook and what it expects from its social media partners?
Yes, we did take a step back from that, and that is something that we're scrutinizing and reviewing closely, and we work very closely with marketing on those issues too.
And TikTok has obviously become an incredibly popular format for storytelling, especially in lockdown, but obviously that has its issues as well, with some of the issues around Chinese ownership and censorship. What about a new platform like that? Have you been playing in that space, and what, as a communicator, what do you need to be aware of to make sure that it's a safe space to communicate in?
We share several of the social media platforms with marketing. And then marketing takes a lead on a number of them. For example, LinkedIn is one that we take a lead on. And so TikTok is not one that we've delved into a lot. We do have experiences with several influencers. So our experience has been a little more tangential to that. on the TikTok platform in particular. We focus a little more on Instagram and Facebook right now.
Okay, and just to finish, when do you expect to be back in the office with your team? Or do you see it actually stretching on for a few more months? That's the big question for everyone at the moment.
Yeah, it keeps changing. And we keep in communication with employees. Most employees are satisfied being at home. Most of our supervisors say that they are seeing the same level or improved levels of efficiency. So there's not necessarily a huge rush. At the same time, there's a significant number of our employees who would like the option to be able to do either. Our current target is at the end of August, but those targets keep changing as the situation continues to evolve. So in the meantime, we're going to continue trying to be as efficient as possible from wherever we may be.
I hear you, and that help with parents is certainly much appreciated with their kids. So good to catch up with you, Travis, and continued good luck with the gig over at Nissan.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, sir.